Network. It is Christopher Witecki, Sensei Christopher Witecki here, alone on location somewhere in Denver, Colorado. That's all I'll say. I've pulled over to have this conversation with you all. We normally have conversations with Gary and Chris, and then lately we've had conversations with Thra and Chris. Now it's conversations with Chris and all of his entities that live in his head. No, actually, today we're going to be talking to a friend of mine. We kind of threw this together. Gary is not available today, and Ra's not available today, but we want to be there for the Human Garage Network. And I always plan on being here, but life has been crazy shifty lately. And so I've decided on the fly to bring on one of my besties, and I'll see him coming up at any time now in the Human Garage feed here. One of my besties, Scott Cruz. He's a psychic medium I work with on LOL, a project that we do on Thursdays. Yes, I have lost weight, a lot of weight. I'm so proud of it. Lost about 50 pounds actually in the last few months. See if that's him here. Nope, it's not. We're not taking guests, everyone. It's just Scott coming up here. So Scott, say hi when you come up. And we're going to talk just about the energy today. We're going to talk about the planets and what's going on. And Scott's a psychic medium. He's going to talk about what he sees psychically. We'll talk about events. We might answer questions. It's just sort of a feel-good episode here to talk about all the changes that are happening. And while I'm waiting for Scott, I'll go ahead and dive into some of this. Scott, go ahead and add yourself to be on the show when you show up here. I know he's going to change his shirt and hop in. I'm going to drink some orange juice today because I'm really focusing on nutrition and vitamin C today. So let me set the scene. We have a full moon coming up, y'all. A full moon coming up on Thursday. And that full moon is the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, of major relationship changes. So just to review where we have been. Libra state of awareness is the ability to give and receive, to receive. So when someone says, you did a great job out there, and you go, thanks, you're receiving it. You're receiving it to the heart. You're taking it to the heart. So there's a stage of taking it to the heart, what we're trying to understand, taking it to the heart of anything in life. And that's the I receive, that's Libra. Libras are fair because they're willing to take on more than other people. That's what makes them so fair. They're the masters of receivers. And so they can receive anything, bad news, be the one to tell you, be the one to receive responsibility for caring for someone, that sort of thing. And so as we started this journey in the beginning of Libra, it was all about, what I'm willing to receive and what I'm not willing to receive from myself and how I receive it. And whether or not I'm taking my medicine with myself, whether or not I'm being there for myself. That was the first 10 days of Libra, what I call the mirage. Ron and I talked about it in detail, the mirage of how I treat me in the relationship. We found out that I'm quite abusive. More on that later. Then we had this solar eclipse at 10 degrees. And that was a hell of an eclipse. That knocked me on my astro. And it created such a wake at Serious Joy. A wake that we're still feeling the repercussions of. And what that solar eclipse was at step 10 was, and so it is. This new way of Christopher Witecki treating himself, this is the law of the mirage. This is what it is, and so it is basically what that eclipse was. And because it was such a powerful energy, it sort of was broadcast everywhere in your world. That's it, I'm going to take care of me. And I think for many of us, that's what it really was. It's like, hey, for once, I'm going to take care of me. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take care of me. So we decided we're going to take care of ourselves with that eclipse. Then we went through the teen degrees, and the teen degrees are the tit for tat of personal relationships, back and forth, realizing, well, to take care of me, that means you've got to stop this and you've got to stop that, and hey, this job has got to quit taking advantage of me, and hey, this has got to change and this has got to change. So in the next 10 degrees leading up to 1920, we started, negotiating really for ourselves, because we made a promise, I'm going to take care of me, which means in these relationships, this has to happen, this has to change, this has to upgrade, all these things have to change because I'm going to take care of me at heart. All right. Thanks, everyone. Yes, I've lost a lot of weight. I'm wearing my first clothes that fit. I went out and bought some new clothes finally for the new size. This is my regular size. This is the size I was at age 24, actually. Funny enough. So taking care of ourselves in the context of our relationships, our job, our daily life, looking out for us in those places was the second decan of Libra, where it's all about, I have this mirage to me, and so therefore I have to change the rules, the regulations, what's happening in these relationships, the way I relate outside of me, maybe the way I relate to food, maybe I relate to, the way I relate to sleep schedules, maybe the way I relate to my colleagues and my peers. And by the way, for me, it's been all that, all the above. Um, I've had to renegotiate most relationships I have in my life, almost everyone. So it's been interesting. And yeah, we're only taking my friend at the moment, which is Scott Cruz. Scott Cruz, request to join when you get here, man. We'd appreciate it. Okay, so then we come into the step 20s, we are now. And the step 20s are complicated for a couple of reasons. One reason is that the 20s all begin with a 2. So, you know, 2 and a number, 2 and a number. So it's how I feel about all of life and the number, how I feel about all of life and the number, okay? So it brings up everything. What does that mean practically? Well, it means that when I'm talking to my wife about how I think she overspent on the groceries because we have a tighter budget. I know it sounds kind of Wilma Flintstone of me to say that, but I'm actually bringing up the time my dad yelled at my mom, and I'm bringing up emotionally all my history is on the table there. All of my history is on the table there. Thank you, Burgundy. And I have to be careful about how much I emotionally project into this situation, and that's where the sophistication is of a master. Like this is a master level because the 20s are all master level because you have to deal with all of your feelings about all of your life and something else. The positive of master is if you have all of your feelings behind the cause, you can create a huge cause that will create a huge effect. The negative of the master level is if you have your bitter feelings about this or that, if you have your pain about this and this, and you add it to the equation, then you now have corrupted what you're creating. You've corrupted what you're in it. And so you will make a master mess out of yourself. You will make a master example of yourself, because these feelings were included. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Scott Cruz. Hello, sir. Thanks for joining me on the fly, dude. Where did I catch you?
That's good. I was just leaving the gym and going to get some grub for the soul. So
Oh, nice. I
not
see McDonald's behind you. No kidding.
yeah, not quite, but yeah, getting some vitamin D right now in the interim.
Yay.
So that's food for the soul too.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks for coming, man. This is Scott Cruz, Psychic Medium. Available at Psychic Medium PM. What's your domain? No,
Psychic
that's
hotline, 1-800 psychic hotline. No, scottcruzpm.com and Scott Cruz Spirit on Instagram. So that's my handle here in the
it's
Instagram
it's
space.
got my soul brother. Just I reunited with him since Atlantis last year, and we were working on a ton of projects together. And he's part of the Soul Group, the Soul Family, and I'm happy this happened. I think a lot of mistakes have happened. Like that, mistakes are happening because they're forcing in these other ops that we hadn't thought of. This must be like the
Right.
fifth time I've had like a weird crossing that worked out.
Oh yeah.
Um,
That's been the past couple weeks actually.
yes, yeah.
Life.
Well, I've even said to my team, like, hey, at this point, the mistakes are gold. Like they're bringing gold. Like for once, it's reverse Bizarro world.
Right. Exactly.
So let's embrace
100%. Yeah.
totally.
Yep.
Well, I was just talking about how this week I was kind of going to the full moon this week, and let's start there.
Mhm.
Scott and I tag team on a show called LOL Leading Out Loud. That's on Thursday afternoons, and we have two other people on the team too that help us: an angel reader and Scott Chris Reck, who is a tarot master, and
Yeah.
Devin Dewar, angel reader. And we all sort of powwow and talk about these things anyway. We've already talked about this, but this full moon's at 24 degrees Aries, and
Mm.
so to me, this full moon, I want to know what your psychic third eye says. This full moon is sort of like ripping off the band-aid and realizing, that's it. It's not going to work
Right.
for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And for some, maybe a small, I don't know what your percentage is. For some people, it's like, oh my God, you're the one. Like they're finally
Right.
realizing this is the last moment. They realize they've been in love their whole time as best friends, and they're going to make a rom-com now about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But so now between now and then, it's the emotional negotiation, and we have step 22 happening here in about an hour.
Yep.
We've already had fallout at Serious Joy where we have two people down. When I
Wow.
say down, I mean we'll see if they end up being with us,
Right.
working with us. Which I'm not. Honestly, it's a fated moment, but I'm just saying, major things are changing that we did not plan on.
It's like
We're
a
already
Rubik's
seeing it.
cube. It's like a
Yeah,
Rubik's cube. So what's going to fit, to bring the big picture into play? But yeah, I actually just posted a video in regards to that, cut it out, cutting them out, because I think we have been lingering a lot of these relationships because but the potentials haven't shown themselves. And, a lot of times
Right.
we're feeding potentials for somebody else, but it's not a very collective experience in the relationship. So I've been
Yes.
feeling a lot of urges, not just personally, but seeing it within my clients that it's time to really cut those relationships free. And if it's been a long-term marriage, if it's been a friendship that you've been supporting and you're not getting the support,
Hmm.
and yes, Chris, you and I have been saying for a while too, with that balance, when you cut that tie, you're gonna be knocked off balance a little bit because it's been weighing you down. You're like, I have all this extra energy, this extra weight now. How do I leverage it out? And so that's a good problem to have because that means now you have the energetic space to occupy what's most important now. So if anyone's been thinking about, whether or not they should be cutting it out, I see the thought itself is the indication that you should. So I think this week is, yeah, this week, and I think the full moon is really going to emphasize, that tremendously as far as that's your next direction, because, we need to be the vibration of what we want, right? And if we're not in that vibration in totality, there's going to be things in our lives unconsciously that are blocking us from being in that energy in totality. Thus, will be a prevention to what we want to manifest. So we have to look at it. It's in a way we're saving ourselves,
Oh,
by doing so.
and saving what you're manifesting. And I was thinking just before you came on, if
Right.
all the step 20s are you feel and the full moon is I feel. If those feelings if there's a little smut in there, if there's like a little like, but you fucker, like if there's a little, any of that stuff like still lingering, you
Right.
will have that result in the child. The
Right.
child, whatever you create, will have a like, yeah, it was a good deal, but there was a little fuckery still. It's like, was a little
Sure.
bit, there's a little vibration that day, you casted that intention.
That's right.
So
Hold on,
we're,
get my
having
dog.
it cut clear. Go ahead.
Dog is just running away here. So
Oh, come here, honey.
before this way, an Amazon person doesn't attack them and they come in to deliver packages. But I 100% agree with that because and the thing is, people when you've been feeding people for so long your
Yeah.
energy. And when you take that away, they're going to blame you for the problems and almost like present a sense of guilt.
I
Like,
know
like
that's
you,
happening, and I'm like, really,
right.
really, on
You're
this final hour after everything we've been together, you're gonna pull that one, really?
right.
Like,
Right.
come
How I
on,
thought
man.
I thought you were empathetic. I thought you had empathy. They're going to say all those things and all those words to get us to feel bad. And it's like, I was empathetic. Now I'm putting the empathy and the love into self. So,
And then
yeah,
myself, right? And they're
right.
like,
And
you're not what people think you are. You're not a sensei. No, no, no. Like, oh, come on. I've
right.
heard that exit speech so many times. I'm like, really?
Right. Right. Right.
Okay,
Right. But the
narcissist.
thing is, it's that, but also people are afraid of change, and
Right,
you have been their anchor in that case, and especially certain friendships have been their anchor. So when you're pulling their anchor, they kind of use any type of survival
right.
tactic to keep you present,
You're right,
and
and they
so
can't help it. Those World War, those Russian systems just auto launch. I
it's
found
tech
myself
talk.
doing that. I was like, whoa, whoa, I didn't mean that.
Right.
Sorry, my ego just punched you. I'm sorry. Like,
It's like the Matrix, all of a sudden the Matrix is dodging all these bullets and stuff. Like, oh, I caught that one, and not
yeah,
so quick. Um,
it's true. We take
but
over that way.
Right, but I think this is a test right now, though, because I think
Hmm.
that when you find that balance, you dodge, you rather you like call it out, you throw it aside. I think you'll find the leverage. But it's also universe saying and spirit saying that we need to make space for those who are most important, right? And so,
Yeah,
especially with your circumstance, and it's never personal. It's like, well, some people don't want to fit the bigger picture of the mission. It leaves
right,
space for those who can to push things forward as well, right? To
right.
have more of that tribe energy, that's in sync, not in opposition.
Yeah, and I found too, with a couple of cases, we both tried to convince each other that our way was the right way.
Sure,
Like,
it's
and
always
it,
yeah,
ca-
the
and
ego.
it, right, and we, like, you don't get it, you don't get it, no, you don't get it, like, and then finally it was like, okay, we get it differently,
Right.
and we have that right as humans, and so it's
Sure.
like, okay, that's your theory, this is my theory. My attitude is like, I'll see you in heaven if I don't get to hang out with you in this life again, and we'll see which one was right or which one worked. But I'm not gonna. I no longer have the energy to, like, if you don't believe in the same direction, then we're wasting our time.
True. But you also, and I think those who are watching too need to understand, there are people who understand where you're coming from. They just know how to manipulate to get what they need from. Like we have to be conscious of this. And some of these people who we call narcissists, they're really good at that. Or these people who are very needy, they're good at that, knowing to say the right keywords and make you feel guilt, to overly question yourself. And so I would say more times than not, it's circumstances like that and not so much, oh, two people are bumping of heads. Because usually that will resolve in time. And people just not seeing things clearly. It resolves and there's always a positive outcome. Majority of the times I see with myself and clients, it's usually people deliberately being manipulative and trying to gain that traction and leverage. So we have to
Yeah.
be smart with that,
I've had a
you
couple
know?
people come back, at least two. They go, you know what? I'm sorry the way I reacted.
Right,
That was like my old Russian missile system launching. I now realize that's a shitty way to handle it. Like, so there's learning moments. I think
right,
there's a lot of learning. Like even I have been like, whoa, I haven't done something that shitty or said something that shitty in a long
right,
time. Like, where did that come from? And I'm sorry that I didn't know that was still set up in there.
right.
Um, and the faith. I think this is a test of faith. We have Saturn in Pisces, we have Neptune in Pisces,
Mm,
and I think in some cases, like for instance, with our customer base, we've had some rockiness, and I think, gosh, guys, it comes down to like, do you have faith in me? Like, do you feel like these I'm gonna not die in the end? Like the hero will
right.
make it? Like, or do you,
Hmm.
what do you have faith in? Because
Right.
at this point, I have to just show you, not tell you anymore. You get tired of
Sure.
you can only be told so many times, and you have to be like, I just got to perform. And part of me as a light worker is like, I got to stopping to apologize and stuff, and just get on the goddamn road and do it.
Right.
Like because I've stopped too many times. Like, so I'll be fixed. Like it
Right.
says like just fix it, just get on the path and do it. But again, I have faith in me, I'll pull it off. I think a lot of people are realizing, we've learned, it's like, all right, well, if you don't have faith in me at this moment, then it's really not going to work, because you're not going to
Well,
have faith in the first growth moment. You're going to have faith every time we go through a ripple of uncertainty. We're going to be
sure.
dealing with you not having faith, and I respect you not having faith.
Sure. I always, for me, it's just like also, I give them, we need to have something to have faith in, right? Not just either us or a person, like an idea,
Right.
And the more we give them have faith in an idea that sustainable works, then of course the source, you or the person delivering it, they'll entrust, right? And so I always say, I have faith in things based off consistency. And so if people are having issues having faith within themselves, the more consistent they are with themselves, they'll be like, oh yeah, I can definitely handle that, right? And
Right.
so as long as you're also consistent with those, with your constituents or people who are, you're working with, they'll have faith in you because your consistency.
Right.
And sometimes your consistency, right, can also mean there's going to be a separation too. Although that means the people around you will witness your consistency, even though it might pluck out a few others in the mix. But it also can, people, others can witness, well, he's actually holding to his word. He's being consistent. I have faith in him. So we can't forget those who already have faith in us, that they will also continue to support us more when we're consistent and holding true to our value, right? And so,
So I'm
so sometimes
consistent,
we let the couple, puzzle pieces that go, like, oh my gosh, like no, but like it's
but in a
supporting the bigger
wardrobe
picture,
change, in a wardrobe change,
right?
when you're trying something new, and that's been my counter argument. My counter argument's been like, y'all, I got eight years of consistency. I do. Let the record show it. Look at YouTube. And also, I've said, oh, I should have put out disclaimers. I may be inconsistent because I'm about to turn into a pineapple on camera and not show any of my parts. And I've never done that before. Like,
Full
so bear with
vulnerability,
me. I'm learning. I'm learning that. Yeah, I'm learning that I have to preemptively. What's the word? Make what's the word? What's the word they say at the bottom? Fine print. You know what I'm saying? To say here are some terms and conditions of the
right?
next minute.
Right. Right.
Right.
The yes, the prerequisites in a sense, yeah. But I think that when people see you as being human or see us for being human, and no matter who's listening in the room, you're human. When people see that you're human, right? We're human garage for a reason, right?
Right.
And so people
True.
tend to be more accepting and be more, I'll say, lenient if they say, well, he's human too. And you're showing those vulnerabilities. And I think a lot of people are afraid if you're light workers and those who are working with people, don't be afraid to show your vulnerabilities because that creates more faith
Yeah.
and your client or who you're trying to assist. Because especially with my clients that I work with, and I'm always constantly expressing my traumas I've
Yeah.
experienced and being relatable, so they can have faith. Oh, he knows what I'm talking about.
He's
So
been there.
relatability.
Yeah.
We've been there, so they can trust that. Well, he seems okay now. He's standing now, so he'll see that it works, right? And so I think that when we do that with no matter who's in our experiences this way, then we create more of that sustainability, and consistency, and faith,
I agree. But what's
within the
happening
experience.
is, on the inside, I'm not admitting that I'm not going to get this. I'm still rooting for the hero. I'm like, no, we got this. We fucking got this. Like, there's
Mhm.
nothing to warn about. in my inner like like the way I put myself up to like pull off the miracle. I
Yeah.
don't want to like I think I got in this habit of like not disclaiming that I could drop everything any minute now because to me that just freaks me out as a performer. So I just like I'm not going to talk to them about what could go wrong. I'm not going to go over anything that can go wrong. I'm just going to go right. It's been sort of my attitude. Now I'm going to have to find a happy balance in between.
Yeah. I
You know,
I personally love to show people when things go wrong. That's my, you know me, I love the dark side of things too, right?
yeah,
I'm always like,
the shadow,
because
what's
I
under
feel
the
like
rock.
it's a big picture. And it's like when someone sees, hey, you know what, you fucked up here, you messed up here, and then you take them like, oh, but here's the formula. Then the person watches like, oh, well, he figured it out.
Right,
I didn't have to take that stumble. I can actually trust on him. He figured it out. So we lead by example, even when we're getting it wrong.
right,
And I think many people, seem that they always have to be showing brave face. It's like, no, I mean, people can see that you're learning. That's the point of being a leader. You're saying, I'll do it. Like I'll
right.
I'll take the
On
challenge.
camera, yeah,
Right, on camera, I'll take the risk. I'll say the word. I'll break the boundary, and I'll learn from it, so you don't have to. So I think we all should be willing to. That's the vulnerability part. I think many people need to find the balance on too. Especially this week we're talking about
yeah,
forecasting the right sense of balance with that
yeah,
vulnerability
yeah.
and without self condemnation.
Right,
Because part of being vulnerable, Christopher, as you know, is that you put yourself up for scrutiny.
yeah.
And but sometimes that scrutiny is setting so many other people free, right? And
Oh
setting so
yeah,
many other people free of their limitations, or that you might be saying something that they've been wishing they can say, right?
right,
And especially if you work in a group setting and there's a couple bad apples and other people have been holding it in, that like I've been feeling the same thing. You're speaking for them too, right?
right.
And so part of being a leader is you're putting yourself on the line too,
Oh,
you know? And
oh
so
yeah. Well,
everybody
my issue
watching
has
too,
been
understand that.
the scrutiny. So here's the thing. I'm like, I'm ready for the scrutiny. Bring it on. I thought this whole thing through, and they're like, "What about your shoes?" I'm like, "What? My shoes?" Like, what I get scrutinized on is shit that I didn't think about. Like, oh, I didn't know the shoes were a problem. Oh, see, he doesn't think through. He's not quite a leader. Wait a second. It's like I find that we're at different pages of what we scrutinize. Like, that's what surprises me usually.
Well, yeah, but Christopher, you know that too. If you're carrying too much, and I think we all have that, we all have an issue with this. That gives people leverage who don't really want to change to be able to nitpick, right? So then we give them that leverage of, oh yeah, whatever you want, I'll be at your service. We have to pay attention to those bad apples too, right? Because then they feel like everything's working. They're bending for me. So now let's make them be a contortionist now, right?
Well,
Because they're bending for me.
as a
And
leader,
so
there's
this
that
is what
issue too. I open the door this much, suddenly
always.
you're making my decisions for dinner tonight. Like, what the fuck? Oh, I didn't invite you. You're not choosing my dinner because I let you have a creative option at this moment. This moment,
Yeah,
it
sure.
does get taken too far. It's like giving it. It's a fine balance. But I also feel
Well,
like we have had we're coming out of an era that's based on our issues, and we're going into a new era
yep.
that's based on like our strengths and the support we need. So in a lot of ways, we've come to realize that this whole school, I don't want, I don't belong here. I belong in a whole different school, and in this other school, I don't know if I'm going to encounter some of those issues anymore. May be dead. There may be new issues coming.
Well, I just think to me, it's just not so much issues. I think they're just results, right? So if there's changes,
Okay,
and just like if you outgrow a old pair of shoes, right? You're kind of like, oh, I love these shoes, but my feet are getting bigger and it just hurts. You don't blame the fact that there's something wrong. Like it just doesn't fit anymore,
that's true.
And I,
I'm just
I
yeah. I'm
love,
looking. Yeah.
I love, I,
How do you make
I
sure you
love.
don't have bad shoes again in the future? I mean, is there not like a takeaway learning moment? Like it's not scrutinization, but like what
We
went wrong here? So
learn.
next, yeah,
Well,
okay,
comfort, right? So if you're feeling uncomfortable with certain things, then that's letting you know too that, hey, I feel uncomfortable, so therefore I have to kind of maybe select a different pair of shoes, right? In
right,
that sense, or a
okay,
different pair of people, right?
yeah,
Because at the end of the day, I think we as empaths, I'm sure people in the room have all very much understand this, that we always make ourselves uncomfortable for other people,
mm-hmm,
and that's the problem. That's the problem. Your comfort level should just be as equal as the comfort you're trying to provide,
yeah,
right? And
mm-hmm,
otherwise, that'll shit will knock you right off balance. And I've learned that primarily the past 3 months. I really kind of I thought I mastered it before, but I kind of really mastered it this past 3 months. And so once you do, that's where the consistency, Christopher, comes in, because then you're more even keel, right? And I think that becomes where you can't be shaped, you know. And so I would say both expressions are good. When people see you, kind of ruffling your feathers and you see how you're expressing, it's like, oh yeah, he is human. He's not some, person that I can control, and that's a vulnerability. But then when you maintain your balance and consistency, that's also a lesson for them too,
yeah,
And so
yeah,
I always
and
say
bouncing
this is just result. Yeah, it's nothing. I would say it's nothing that you're doing anything bad. It's just kind of like things are changing.
things are changing. And that's the other thing too. I think there was a resist. I had to prevent every time I get a criticism. Um, I'm pulling up my history of that and having to dismiss it. Like, no, 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 this actually isn't admissible in the court. Like I'm catching that I bring up all this past stuff. I'm catching myself in the subconscious act of reacting. Like, oh, I'm this woman just triggered my mother issues, and I just talked to her like I talked to my mom. This person triggered my father issues, and I just, responded in a shitty way like I had to deal with my dad. And I've caught my child versions of myself dealing with modern moments automatically without me asking, taking me over. But I think because I need to see that, like, oh, that's not pretty, So I think some of this stuff happens just to disarm. It's not that anyone's right or wrong. It's like we're changing. We're gonna go do direction. These things are still operating
Exactly.
in you. Yeah.
When you're growing and expanding to something new, it's going to irritate that shit that's been there for a while. Like when you try
Mm,
to move that fridge and the cockroaches scurry. When you're moving
mm,
major shit in your mind, all those mental cockroaches are just going to scurry, and it's going to
ew.
be little fragmented for a bit. But for to me, it reveals it. You know what I mean? It reveals those
Yes.
things, and
Or
especially when
confirms it. I heard
and
something
I,
digging on the fridge. I knew it. It
exactly right. And so
confirms. Yeah.
as leaders, we have to also evolve as leaders, as light workers. You have to evolve as light workers, and there's gonna be those uncomfortable moments because a lot of times, and I know a lot of light workers in the room too, feel this. Sometimes you feel like you can't grow out of certain things because you have to maintain that stoic energy. And we're like, no, you're gonna have a breakdown moment too as you learn how to expand and lead further on. That's necessary. That doesn't stop at any level.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I think the most important message here with all what we're saying too is for those in the room to not judge themselves for those types of
Yeah.
purges. And this is the energy of this week. So I mean, we're kind of talking about our personal experiences, but this is really the read of the week and moving forward. And it could be blindsiding, it could be very unbalancing and chaotic and fragmented. But when you look at it from that angle, I think everybody in the room will find their success because I think there's gonna be a tremendous amount of movement because of this. Yeah.
Yes.
I
Someone's asking, can I explain the full moon? And yeah, I will as a means of our next point. Like the full moon is step 24, Aries. Okay. 24 adds to a six, which is a Libra degree. So this is a full moon that's under Libra's control. In other words, shit's going down, Aries, in a gentle way, Libra. Like it's sort of like a planned demolition from the inside out. Like it's going to be planned demolitions. What it means is like it's that the 24 net 6 is like a commandment, an energetic commandment for things to be fair and balanced. So
right,
the full moon is like it's got to be fair and balanced. Like it
right,
puts out this energy of fair and balanced, which means the wave of energy then hits anything not fair and balanced, then becomes wobbly. Anything that's not under that commandment, it ends up starting to fall apart under its own weight. So there's a lot of things falling
absolutely,
down. But there's also people who are just like, yes, this is the boost they needed. And 24 is where I feel I belong, where I feel I belong. That's
right,
literally a calling to your family, a calling to the ones, your soul family, saying you belong with the people that understand and vibrate with
right.
you. And you don't have to change yourself to vibrate with someone else. And they don't have to change themselves to vibrate with you. This is the beginning of the age
That's
of
right.
Aquarius, really,
Yep,
this first commandment. So,
that's right.
what ends up happening is with the sun in Libra at Grandmaster 24, the sun's at Grandmaster Libra, that becomes law basically for the next
Right.
year.
That's
And so
right.
that's law. So for the next year, if they're not on your wavelength, they don't waste your time right now
Right.
because I think just the energy of the full moon is going to keep lingering until we
Right.
have a full moon in this spot next year. And so that's going to be the law, which means this is a whole year of just picking your favorites.
Sure.
Working with your favorites, working where it's like easy and not, it's just easy. And that's what we have at LOL that I love. It's like it's so easy. I'm not afraid to be who I am with you guys, and I do fear of letting you down and things like that. But like at the end of the day, I don't feel like there's anything I can take to you, and
No,
that you
yeah.
wouldn't understand.
You can only let me down if I put my all my substance in you, and I don't, right? So therefore,
Right.
it's like I'm understanding it as a person. With the full moon for me psychically being astro dumb, for me
Okay.
psychically,
Yeah, I did
I
this.
like to use I like to use a representation of like things coming full circle. When you think of a full moon, you see the whole apparatus of the moon, and so to me, things are coming full circle. And especially when we're talking about this Libra season, things are coming full circle. And in order for that to happen, yes, it's going to be a lot of kind of deprivations in the process, but you could see the bigger picture. You may not like the bigger picture, but you need to see the bigger picture. So when we embrace this, oof, the power of manifestation and clearing out karmic debt is magical and extremely powerful in that sense, right?
Yes.
And so, because I always tell people when you clear out karma, your manifestation powers are like heightened to the 110th degree, right? And
Yes.
so because you're creating a new paradigm now because of resolve karma. So a lot of you guys are resolving karma now, and that's an important time for this full moon too, as the full circle, as the big picture is presented,
Right.
because then you can start moving where people are like, how did that happen? You think about something, it happens, it falls into place, and people are like, how did you do that? It's like, well, cleared by karma, baby, you know? So
Totally
yeah,
into the pattern. I agree with the full circle 100%.
right,
And it's sort of like in war games where at the end the computer's like, the only way to win is not to play. Like you have this final moment of like, oh, that's what it
right,
was. There's also
right,
that full circle, like, don't date your mother. Got it. Like there's a certain like there's a formula, and from that you feel empowered with the algorithm of magic, and you can just
right.
and you do feel free that you're not going to get caught in that that
Right.
traffic loop anymore. Yeah.
Right. Well, someone just asked too, how do you clear out karma? I like to say karma is just memory, or carried on patterns. It's like patterns of your past, right? And so there's also good karma. So I notice in my life I have a lot of good karma. Things just happen, protection. People are always looking out for me because of my previous good karma. But also karma is unresolved lessons and patterns. So when you recognize those patterns that are suffocating you, that are depriving you, and you change those patterns and to more of a self-love, a self-acceptance energy, and
Mhm.
you evolve from that, then you've cleared karma. You've learned a lesson. You flipped it on its side. So that's how you
Yeah.
clear karma. So first thing is be acknowledgeable of the pattern, whatever it
Yeah.
may be, and what it's telling to you, and what the dichotomy is of the negative, and that positive would be the lesson. And when you grab onto that, you behave it, your karma's cleared. And so
And
yeah,
your
that's how you
your
clear the karma.
your karma is tied to the way you respond to it. So
Yeah.
so if
Well,
it's
but
not
yeah,
like, hey Scott, let's talk about your haircut. Like
I don't got
if
hair.
if you always like respond like you actually create it again by you having the same response. That's so like the way you have to end it is this time it's like, it's nothing to me. Yeah. Like once
I,
it's
l- I
nothing to you,
love, yeah, I love that you said that, because I always said what we react to, we relate to, both on the good and the
yes.
bad. So pay attention to what you're reacting to. Some people
Mhm.
are like, oh, I love his energy. Well, that's your energy. Like, embrace your own energy, self-love that. But if you're always reacting to something negative, then I would say you relate to that. And so it's time to work on that. For a while, Christopher, I was like so pissed off at how people are so inconsiderate out and about. And there are. But then I realized I was Mr. Speedy Gonzalez trying to get what I want, and I was being so considerate of people in other, modalities of walking. So I was, oh shit, I'm the one being inconsiderate. And so I flipped it. Now I go out and it's like everything's in flow again,
Yeah, and
So
sometimes
definitely.
sometimes where you're being inconsiderate is you're making a big deal out of fucking nothing. And you're just not
Yeah.
really considering that you're an amazing guy. And why aren't you considering these other things about yourself? And why is this thing being
True.
considered instead of this being considered? So
Right.
I think it's
Hmm.
all a reflection of our me rich, how we relate to ourselves on the inside. We're seeing, physical real world examples of how we operate in the invisible.
Right.
Reality makes it visible. So yeah,
And
it's a
Bogey
karmic
says
turning
here,
moment.
yeah,
Hmm.
and Bogey says here about transmuting energies, kind of what I was saying before, because we don't overly have to overly mysticize this, right?
Right.
It's just a new perspective, right? And so if you understand a perspective is limiting you, causing negative results, and you understand if I see things differently, that would grant me a better result, then it's just shifting point of view. Because perspective and realization kind of shifts your behaviors, and then the energy is transmuted through action. And, I like to tell people too that, if you didn't know what a burning stove was, right? And you put your hand on a burning stove, you burn your hand like, oh, fuck. You don't have to remind yourself, don't put my hand on a hot stove. You just know because it burnt you.
Right.
When you become conscious of the things in your life that are burning you,
Mhm.
you won't do it again. You'll stop it. Or you'll
Right.
call yourself out every time you do it because it's conscious now. That's transmuting energy. Bring the unconscious conscious, you know?
True, and I will say that there, a lot of times people are like, I can't break it; it keeps happening. But what's happening is like, let's say you have karma where like is it okay for me to take money from you without asking? No, that's stealing.
Right.
Okay, so you get stolen from. You're like, all right, that's it. Nobody can take money without asking. And then the universe is like, what about gasoline? Can you take gasoline? Like, so the universe like does variations of the theme. What about if I
Sure.
don't return the change on this? And you're like, what the fuck? It's like whack a mole. You're like, this karma's killing me. And it's like,
Not this,
no,
not this, not this.
creation like explores everywhere. So it's like until you've also just like gone through all the variations of that theme and
Right.
all the ways it can come up,
Right.
karma, it's like a karate movie. You've got to actually like block every kind of variation of it that you've ever
True.
experienced and like get to the bottom. And finally, like,
It
okay, I
is
think
true.
we got it. We
It's,
got it.
you're swatting
You
it from
know?
behind too. Like I'm just hitting them from
Yeah.
behind me too. I'm
Like,
not even
oh,
losing
yeah.
anymore.
Totally like,
But
it's like a karate movie. Yeah.
But you see, that's the thing. When, you see, we hear these bumper stickers all the time, like keep things easy, simplify, and so people don't really understand what it means or how to apply it. I'm saying when you keep things simple, like I always say, if you think of in spirit, we get one energy all at once, right? So when
Hmm.
we're not in physical form, we get love, we get all the love energy at once. We're in the physical form, we take that love energy that can be broken down into so many different expressions
Yeah.
and different, actions and so forth. But
Yeah.
once we become more keen on what simplifying means, saying what is the general essence of all this, and just lump it all together, you wouldn't have to do what we were saying before and be Virgo neurotic about.
I,
Well, what about
I,
this? You
I,
understand the energy is all similarly related. Rocco,
you're saying like cut it off at the root and then it won't like grow into all these weeds. Like, I don't know. I've tried that. I mean, I'll try that. We'll see. For some reason, my side of I have Virgo in the second, so I have to. For me, I have to see in every fucking expression before I'm like, and done. Like I don't know.
yeah,
That's me. Maybe it's
sure.
might be my programming.
No, yeah, we
Uh,
all have our ways of doing it. Yeah, we have all different ways of doing it, right? And so, I always say if we were keen on the root, like you said, then you would be more conscious and intuitive on the different, branches from the roots, subroots. If you understand the core, then you would resonate like, oh yeah, it's the same energy, different expression. You know,
Totally. We
we
have a question here. I think it's
package it.
interesting. I mean, she goes, the energy sent our way from other thought forms. How do we turn that into courage? Like, so she's saying, or this person's saying, maybe wrong pronoun.
Oh, like
Um,
psychic warfare type of thing.
well, I guess, or
Um,
like, or your boss is thinking shitty thoughts of you, or your ex-wife is thinking right now that you're out doing this when you're out doing that. Like, how we are either picking up on their thoughts literally because we're telepaths, or we're imagining what they're thinking.
well, I mean, I think that yeah, there's two things from that. How do we turn that into courage? Well, we'll do different scenarios. For me, I think we're very intuitive about how people feel, and that turns to thought forms too. We can sense out what people are thinking. I think the first thing to do for that is ask, is it relevant? Is it relevant
Is
for
it
you?
relevant?
Is
Right.
it relevant? Yeah.
Right.
Is it relevant for you? And if it is, I think we could do things with psychic ability intuition. One, you could get a glimpse into what people are feeling and understand how to respond to them. So that's how you can turn it into, in a sense, of productivity. Or you
Right.
can ask yourself, I'm just getting a whole lot of garbage from other people's thought forms, or I'm getting just channeling information from the ethers, from the quantum field that's just random. You have to make sense of what's relevant first, and then you can
Yeah.
turn it into courage or turn it into some sort of motivation.
I
Because
agree.
there's many people out there who are open channels, Christopher, and they're just
Yeah.
getting just shit like a babbling fool, and
Yeah.
they're not making sense of it. So yes, there's an abundance of information in the quantum
Right.
field. We got to put it
Right.
together, piece it together. Don't just let anything flow in, because no matter what emotional state you in, you might be picking up on something or a thought form that's not relevant. It's just
Right.
random, and you're
Right.
thinking it has value, but it really doesn't.
Right.
So
Well,
it's about
well, that's
understanding
the thing. You're right. You're creating the value. You are like, so
100%.
like
Yes.
right now, I'm probably standing on a bunch of ants and they're like, you fucker. Like they're hating me right now. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh,
I'm trying to
not,
find.
not in my reality. Like, I don't care. I'm not picking up on the ants. I'm not an empath. Like, oh, these ants, the energies, they're hitting me. I think it's that you're putting attention on it, first of all. So
Yeah.
instead of putting attention on you being happy with you, you're thinking about what other people are thinking of you.
Yep.
Well, that's going to make what other people think of you much bigger because you're giving your creation energy to and your attention to other people's thoughts of you.
Right.
So it's almost
It's
like
like,
some of the
it's
empaths
like,
are like literally hitting themselves. They're like, why is it hitting me? Why?
right.
It's like you're hitting you.
Right.
You're, look at them. Yeah.
But it's like you don't want to hear every radio station at once either. Like you might have the ability to do that, but do you want to hear all those radio stations combined at once? It'd be distortion. And I like someone here said, etheric garbage noise, which is true. And so relevancy. And so I think to finish that question about this is really having more of a direction of what you're trying to receive. Because we are
Yeah.
receivers. We are receivers, and we can receive a lot of kind of random shit too, and just be more conscious of that.
There's
You
also
know?
a boundary issue there. Like when I go into,
Yeah.
like, for instance, when I go into a hot seat, which is, been every day the last few weeks, where I'm starting explaining my erratic, crazy behavior, which is all true. When I go into that situation, I go, okay, I don't want to feel any of their stuff right now. I don't want to feel any of
Yeah.
it. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel his opinion or her opinion. I want to feel this. I don't want to feel it. Now, they come back and go, it was like you were walled off. I was, like
Well, you have
I
to
was
check.
walled off. Like I had energetically said, I can't let that get to me because it's going to throw me off. So I
Right.
make a commandment to that moment. No, this is not allowed in my field. And guess what? Your soul doesn't automatically autopilot. There's no holding it back and trying to having to fight it. Like it just is once you
Right.
say it is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the other is judgment. Judgment is a good thing. You were saying, you got to wait and see what it is and see what your take is on it. And I say, yes, that's step 8. I decide, like, and that decision right there settles a lot. It's like, so this, you hear this stuff coming in, and like, if I go, oh, that's a bunch of bullshit, boom, it's closed, it's off. I've decided and judged it's not relevant to me. And so therefore it is not. I decided it's
Right.
not. And so it isn't.
Right.
So I think people
Yeah.
fail to like make the call.
It's true. It's true. But I also too, like I tend to take it, once I learned that, then I started saying, I like to be more well-rounded now. And so when people say you're being too this, I'm like, well, could I make that part of myself a little better, more open to those types of people? And sometimes like, yeah, why not? Or sometimes like, no, I'm not gonna, it's too extreme. So I think you can play with it more. I think people need to have more fun with these
Oh,
things, to be honest with you.
yeah. It's more of a
Be-
game.
because I'm like, they might that critique or that perspective could inspire me to bring out something else I never thought about. And
Right.
especially as a musician and artist, I kind of always take these little perspectives and I'm like, oh, I can create a well-rounded more picture of something. So
Yeah.
I think once we kind of get past of like what's relevant, then we can start having more fun with it
Yeah.
and kind of I see my physical being as a persona, as a sim character. I'm
Yeah.
like, how do I want to tweak the Scott Cruz character, and
Right.
experience that? And so it's all different forms of mastery. I think
Yeah.
too many people tend to be too judgmental about it because a lot of people are judgmental, but when we get judgmental out from ourselves, and have the objective approach of how we can tweak ourselves and use it as like tools at all time, we become such a master.
Yeah. And life
Not being
becomes a game.
affected, right? Objective and unaffected is the mastery, right? And that's kind of one of the keys to that, in my opinion.
Yes. And I would say the hard part of this Libra season is it involves others. So,
Yes.
it won't involve others like as much in Scorpio and much less in Sag involve others.
Right.
So you're being asked to move off their property, are you?
What's that?
Sir,
No,
please,
no,
please come off our property.
no, my dog is like he's very.
Oh, it's
I'm just gonna put him
your
inside because
dog. It's cute.
he, he
Um,
brought
I,
Little Rock is Daddy, I'm
I,
birding outside.
and you did a great job framing up flowers there in the shot. I liked it, Brady. It was great. I have
We'll just be inside
realized,
for now.
actually, I realized halfway through my current, whatever you want to call it, whatever we'll call it, you know, second midlife crisis, like
Right.
that, like,
Right.
halfway through, I realized, oh, this is just a game. And then, like, of course, all my people involved in the game are like, you're not taking this seriously, are you? I was like, no, not anymore. Like, they're like, that's insulting. You're not hearing us. Like, okay, I've realized it's a game halfway through the game, but so you have to watch when you be careful in your relations, like, because at that point you may not want to reveal to them who want you to take that moment seriously. But I am at this point where I'm like, this is all a simulation. This is all something I've come up with. We're all just here to teach each other how we look and how we're performing, and let's just relax.
Exactly. And a lot of times, there's people out there who are spewing, hate or judgments and, or they're just reacting in ways that's because they're limited perspective. And I just personally like to engage with it. Like I know where I stand. I understand everyone is coming from a different perspective in their evolution.
Yeah,
And so that's cool. That's cool. No
right.
judgment on that, but I definitely would love to engage with it. The problem is most of them don't want to engage.
I
They don't
know.
want to take it any further in
I
engagement. And
hate that.
so, um, yeah.
That
And
bugs me.
so,
I'm like, well, wait. Oh God, this is me another teacher.
but that's when I take the Yeshua approach. Say, forgive them for
Oh
they
yeah.
know not what they do.
Uh,
In that
ah,
retrospect. You
got
know.
you. That's
But,
true.
but yeah, and when you're presented with a group of people, there's gonna be that diversity and people and I said a lot of people who are new to spirituality too, and they're leading abusive relationships or they're coming from deprivation and
Yeah.
they start coming in the spiritual community, start saying no, 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 and they're trying to create their own safe zone.
Right.
And that could be potentially damaging too. So we also have to understand when to call it out too and put it in its place as well to make sure there's a balance within our tribe and our groups too.
Yeah.
So
And
hmm
as I said to our team today, is like, come on, no one's even caring about this but us. Let's let ourselves off the hook. Like,
hmm
this is totally new to be thinking in these terms. This is the new age right
right,
here. This is it. It's
right,
messy. We're coming from a horrible mess in the past. Like,
right.
if it's better, we should just go ahead and pass ourselves on a pass fail, not an A through F.
Right. And I like this question here. Evelyn says, what if your entire family and social group that doesn't understand your
Uh,
evolution? Well,
ah,
I'm being gay and going through conversion therapy, and no one understood my evolution where I was going. You got to maintain. It's like you're not living for your family. You're not living
right.
for their perspectives. You're in your own mind and your own perspective. And I say now that is the time, most importantly, to find a tribe of people who are in a similar variant of your evolution, and finding groups of people if you need that support that don't support you and push on because at the end of the day, people who love and support you will want to understand your evolution. If they don't, they're
Right.
not the right support system. And you'll get to a point, a lot of times we're not there yet. You'll get to a point you can be objective enough to understand it, right? and then you have more sympathy for them. But a lot of us a lot of people are healing, and so you need to find a better group of people that support your evolution,
Yeah.
and you're not living for them. And it's a very simple approach, but that's the reality of it. And because
Yeah.
they're family, right? And I've had, as you know, Christopher, the traumas I have with family members.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that they're God in your life. That doesn't mean you're there to serve them just because they're blood related family. That
Right.
only means that they're reflections of you and any type of similar karmic patterns of your past lives. That's why they're there. You're
Right.
not there to serve them. So I would
Right.
say get that out of your mindset that it's not about serving of them. It's about still living your voice and finding a community of people that really do resonate with your evolution.
Yes.
They don't have to understand it,
And I think there's a point in spiritual ascension development. So when you're ascending to a higher point, there is a point when you're on the master's path where the person you're looking for support from is God. It does
right?
come at some point to be the hero and God. That's 40 days in the desert. Jesus, 40 days in the desert is like, there will be 40 days relatively in a desert where no one
Right.
gets you, no one understands. It's just you and God. And that's a
Right.
lesson of
The
who's going to be your
isolation.
compass. Are you really
Right.
going to judge yourself by all these reflections of God, or are you going to go straight to
Right.
source and see
Right.
yourself in that context? So I think
Right.
sometimes when you're left alone,
True.
there's a reason. You've outgrown this level. Like there's no more
Very
learning from
true.
peers at this point. You've
Right.
outgrown your peers.
Right.
That's part of it too. You've outgrown them. They're on a different path. Now you're on a path of the universe.
Right. That's how I developed my internal strength is by having all that opposition with the religion, the religious trauma syndrome that I went through, and the
Yeah.
conversion therapy. I had to really just there was that inner being saying, this is not you, right? And so
Right.
I fought against that, and I would do it again because I would never be so self-sufficient if it wasn't for that. So you're right about the dark night of the soul. Sometimes you're put in those situations to be isolated, so you actually really understand your personal perspective amongst the contradiction,
And one thing
and someone else says
I'm
here,
okay.
yeah. I was gonna
I was
say,
going to say as a leader, hold. Okay. Okay. You got.
no, you're gonna finish. I was going to the
I
new
was
question, but yeah, you can
just going to
finish
say
that.
to hold that question. My last point is sometimes as a leader, it's actually not about you. It's about
Fun.
the people following you's perception of you. So
It's
it's
true.
like, oh, because Spirit said to me, Spirit said, they need to see you fumble and get back up.
That's what he said.
They need to
Yeah.
see that. And I was like,
Right.
huh, well, shit.
Well, but that's what he
Not
said.
that I'm blaming
That's
that. I still have work. It revealed my weaknesses and my things I have to work on too.
right.
I'm not saying that I'm in that, but a lot of it was they need to see, some people need to see you fall and get back up. They need to see that. Well, thanks to everyone. Human Garage, I don't know what's on next, but I know I'm being pulled off by a hook right now. I love you. I'll be here for Thursday for Astro Mechanics, and we'll talk about more of what's going on. Otherwise, see me at Serious Joy TV. Bye. We love you.
Everyone,
Thanks,
bye.
Scott.